Hello everyone, welcome to YU's World. You all must still remember the name Lu Kai, right? He was a household name in the 1960s and 70s, one of the four evil landlords created by the CCP. The other three were Xiao Bapi, Huang Shiren, and Nan Batan. They've always existed in CCP textbooks, poisoning generation after generation of Chinese people. But the truth is, except for Lu Kai, the other three are all fictional characters. And in reality, Li Wenkai was not only not an evil landlord, but actually a great philanthropist. In 1965, the CCP turned Lu Wenkai's former residence into the Lu Wenkai Landlord Manor Exhibition Hall in Dai County, Sichuan. Teachers and students from the Sichuan Fine Arts Institute used clay to create a group of sculptures called the Rent Collection Courtyard, depicting farmers paying rent to Lu Wenkai before 1949, intended to show his crimes of cruel exploitation and oppression of farmers. Li Wenkai thus became the ultimate representative of the landlord class, crafted by a powerful state machine and countless writers and artists. Fan the flames of overwhelming hatred across the land of China. At the mere mention of Lu Wenkai's name, people's hearts would erupt with deep-seated hatred for the old society landlord class and infinite love for the new society Communist Party and Chairman Mao. But the real Lu Wenkai was a widely praised philanthropist among the people of Anren, Dai County, Sichuan for miles around. He not only built streets and storefronts in the town, providing them to homeless villagers for a meager rent, but also funded the construction of Wensai Middle School, the predecessor of today's Anren Middle School. After the school was built, he spent heavily to hire the best teachers, waived tuition for poor students, and never interfered with teaching activities. Even his own descendants were forbidden from claiming school property. Local inscriptions say Lu Wenkai was generous and righteous, possessing the chivalrous spirit of the ancient Yan and Zhao regions. The son of Ji Yun Nangshan, Lu Wenkai's former long-term laborer, said while relaying his father's words, "Even if you take me to be shot tomorrow, I'll still say he was a good man." To brainwash the Chinese people and incite hatred, the CCP fabricated countless lies. To this day, few Chinese people know the truth about Lu Wenkai, let alone the truth about the horrific persecutions during the CCP's land reform movement. The land reform movement was a land reform launched by the CCP in rural China from 1947 to 1953, using the slogan "Land to the Tiller" to encourage farmers to struggle against landlords and redistribute land. Traditional rural landlords, the gentry class, were mostly educated. In every previous Chinese dynasty, they played a vital role in social stability and the moral education of the people. When disputes arose among farmers, they often served as the de facto arbitrators. In times of famine, they often stepped in for the government as providers of release. They were also the inheritors and educators of traditional Chinese culture. Regarding the farmers who rented their land, they didn't exploit them to the extreme as the CCP described, but paid based on labor, a symbiotic relationship where landlords supported farmers and farmers supported landlords. But in the CCP's land reform movement, they became demons used by the CCP to kidnap farmers and win over the people. Dong Shizhen, an agricultural economics expert who left China in 1951, once wrote to Mao Zedong, saying that the CCP's claim that landlords and rich peasants, who make up less than 10% of the rural population, own about 70 to 80% of the land is completely wrong. He pointed out that according to the survey results of the Land Committee during the nationalist government period, in 16 provinces and 163 counties of more than 1.75 million households, 35.6% of households own less than 5 mu of cultivated land, 24% own 5 to 10 mu, 13% own 10 to 15 mu, and large landlords with more than 1,000 mu only accounted for 0.02%. Dang Shijin also said that in China, the feudal system of land grants or hereditary land ended more than 2,000 years ago, and land could be freely bought, sold, and leased based on mutual consent. The vast majority of landowners started out through hard work and good management. Owning land is not a crime. It is only a crime for a very small number of people to obtain land through illegal means. After Dong Xijin submitted his letter, he probably realized that he couldn't change anything, so he sadly predicted that after the CCP consolidated its power, it would take back the farmers' land, establish collective farms, hand over large amounts of grain to the government, and then many problems would arise, such as national tax revenue being affected, getting something for nothing, and using violent means to seize others' property, leading to the loss of humanity, and so on. It should be said that as an agronomist, Dong Xijin exposed the lies in the CCP's propaganda, and his predictions were quite accurate. Not long after Dong Xijin submitted his letter, land reform began to be implemented nationwide. In June 1950, the CCP promulgated the Land Reform Law. Mao Zedong stated that there should be no peaceful land reform or bestowing favors. Farmers should be organized to take back the land through struggle and engage in face-to-face struggle with the landlord class. This is the so-called "there is no such thing as a free lunch" and the CCP's struggle philosophy. Why did Mao Zedong oppose peaceful land reform? When some descendants of landlords recall the experiences of their fathers being persecuted, they often feel confused. Why did land reform have to involve killing? If you want to take the land, then take it. If the landlords resist, then suppress and kill them. But it wasn't like that at all. Even if they didn't resist, the landlords and their descendants were to be killed. Taiwan's land reform achieved the goal of distributing land and equalizing wealth through peaceful means, but the CCP insisted on turning landlords and rich peasants into demons and enemies, making farmers get land through their own struggle. Tan Song, the author of Blood Red Land, is a former associate professor at Chongqing Normal University who was expelled from the school for telling the truth in class and insisting on investigating historical truth. He spent 14 years investigating and researching the history of land reform in eastern Sichuan, interviewing a large number of people who experienced land reform, and finally wrote the nearly 400,000-word book Blood Red Land, uncovering and restoring a tearful historical truth. He says the CCP's so-called land reform was not only their magic weapon for seizing power, but also their secret for securing it, and even more, a grand feast for the ruling elite to enjoy the nation's wealth through land finance. The CCP used land reform to achieve three of its own undisclosed objectives. The first goal was to establish authority through killing to secure their rule, especially over the peasants, forcing those in former nationalist areas to submit to the CCP regime through fear, so they'd never dare resist again. The second goal was to incite the lower-class peasants to struggle against landlords and rich farmers, seizing their land and staining their hands with blood, thus binding them to the party and effectively kidnapping the peasantry. Those peasants who followed the CCP and struggling against landlords eventually had to support the party just to keep the land they had seized. The claim that the Chinese people chose the CCP is a myth. In reality, the CCP used the lower-class thugs and the proletariat to seize the wealth of the middle class. It was a successful rebellion by thugs. In his March 1927 report on an investigation of the peasant movement in Hunan, Mao Zedong stated that the most important finding was that the local thugs, long despised by society, were actually the bravest, most thorough, and most resolute in the rural revolution. It's clear Mao deeply understood the essence of using thugs to ignite a revolution. The third goal was that for the CCP to introduce Marxist-Leninist ideology into China, it had to eradicate thousands of years of traditional Chinese morality, ethics, and values. And the landlords and local gentry were the primary carriers of that traditional Chinese culture. Therefore, the CCP physically eliminated this rural elite class, effectively subverting and reshaping the values and moral outlook of the rural population. This is why the rural people we see today no longer possess their former simplicity and kindness, but instead view banditry, getting something for nothing and seizing others' property, as a righteous revolutionary act against exploitation and oppression. In 1948, Mao Zedong set a quota for targets of the land reform, which was no less than 10% of the total population at the time. The CCP killed according to its needs. That is no exaggeration. This means that at least 30 million peasants in rural mainland China suffered varying degrees of criticism, struggle, and extrajudicial torture, while over 2 million landlords were suppressed, stripped of all their land and property, and had their families destroyed. How many people actually died during the land reform? Mao Zedong estimated it was between 2 and 3 million. Historian Shin Honian mentioned in a speech that the land reform killed 2.6 million landlords. Shi Yutian, a land reform scholar and author of The Destruction of Rural Society, believes the number is at least 5 million. The CCP's methods for struggling against landlords and rich farmers during the land reform were varied and utterly inhumane. Besides beatings with clubs, stabbings with awls, binding with ropes, stoning, burning with tongs, throwing lime in eyes, and inserting wicks into ears to light them like lamps, they also scattered sharp, soybean-sized coal and spinach seeds on the ground, stripped the victims naked, pushed them down, and dragged them back and forth by their feet until they were half dead. Bloody, cruel, and terrifying, it left witnesses trembling in fear, unable to eat for days. Neo Yulan, a patriotic gentry during the anti-Japanese war, was tortured nearly to death during the 1947 land reform in Jinsui. A thug pierced his nose with wire and tied a rope to it. His son, Neo Yinguan, then deputy director of the Jinsui border region, was forced to lead him through the streets. Unable to bear the humiliation, Neo Yulan died after a hunger strike. In an interview with Radio Free Asia, Tan Song said he'd heard farmers speak of the injustices against landlords during land reform. Then, in 2003, he learned of a landlord's wife who, after being assaulted by 4 militiamen one night, had an iron rod thrust into her, causing a ruptured uterus and leading her to bleed to death. This incident deeply shocked him, and he became determined to expose the truth. From that day on, he began his investigation. In his book, Blood Red Earth, Tan Song documented over 100 real cases. The sheer bloodiness, brutality, obscenity, and absurdity are enough to turn anyone pale. In the future, I'll dedicate time to sharing some of the true stories from the interviews in this book. These farmers, who seized land through such bloody and cruel means, thought they'd finally become property owners. Sadly, before their land certificates were even warm, some before even receiving them, they began to lose that land. Tan Song wrote in his book, Land to the Tiller was the great scam of the century. The farmers didn't know that as they received their certificates, the authorities were already drafting a grand socialist blueprint to take all the land back. In 1951, the Communist Party began a series of movements imposed upon the peasantry. Mutual aid teams, primary cooperatives, advanced cooperatives, and people's communes, forcing farmers to run into socialism. A nationwide system of unified procurement and marketing for grain, cotton, and oil was implemented, excluding major agricultural products from market exchange. The CCP also added the household registration system, forbidding farmers from working or living in cities. Those with rural registration couldn't buy grain from state stores, and their kids couldn't attend city schools. The children of farmers were destined to remain farmers. From then on, China's 360 million rural residents became second-class citizens, a status that remains unchanged to this day. Land reform was a major turning point for the fate of Chinese farmers. Before land reform, farmers might not have owned land, but they were free. They could travel to find work, or, in desperate times, join the army, or even become outlaws. After land reform, they briefly had land, but lost it within a few years. Along with it, they lost their freedom. Bound to cooperatives, communes, and production teams, they couldn't farm as they pleased. They became true communist serfs. Precisely because they were strictly confined to the countryside, at least 30 to 90 million farmers died unnatural deaths during the 3-year Great Famine following the 1958 Great Leap Forward. During the Great Famine, victims couldn't even flee in groups or drift into cities. Tan Song says land never truly belonged to the people. It's a cash cow and treasure trove for the CCP elite, destined to be plundered by their factions. Land development and predatory seizures have once again left the farmers with absolutely nothing. Once the land is all sold, what will the party state sell next? Well, the party state already thought of that and set rules for their 3rd and 4th generation heirs, 70-year residential property rights. After 70 years, the land returns to the party's embrace, ensuring their red descendants will never have to worry about survival. This is the true meaning behind the slogan that the Red Nation will never change its color. All right, that's all we have to share for today. This is Way You Watch in the World. See you next time.
Once there was someone who resonated with your kindness, feeling truly touched by the warmth and care you offered. Your compassion left a meaningful impression on their heart, reminding them of the goodness that exists in the world. I encourage you to open your heart even more, allowing that kindness to take root and grow within you, so it can continue to flourish and inspire those around you. That person in the crowd, among so many faces and amidst the bustling world, is patiently waiting for you to turn around, hoping to catch your attention in this vast world, looking a bit travel-worn, weary from the journey, and perhaps even appearing a little foolish, yet still holding on to hope. This time, I truly and wholeheartedly believe with all my heart that the script of our story, the narrative of our lives, has been completely rewritten by you and only you. Your warm, gentle, and understanding gaze, filled with kindness and compassion, forgives my lack of talent, my shortcomings, and my awkwardness when it comes to love. This time, I truly, deeply, and sincerely believe that it is a blessed destiny, a fortunate fate that has brought us together, and I am grateful for it every single day. Walking together through the wind and the rain, side by side, there's really no need for us to be too serious about things. Familiar strangers, we keep moving forward without asking, never pausing to question or look back. The world, despite everything, still holds on to a bit of warmth. There is still some gentle comfort left. But how many people are still out there, quietly waiting, holding on to hope? My most beloved, the one I care for the most, why do you cling so stubbornly to this role, refusing to let go or move on? We are all, in the end, scattered souls, drifting through life. So why do we bother to recognize each other again, to try to reconnect when everything keeps changing? This time, I truly and honestly believe that the script has definitely been rewritten by you. Your sincere and heartfelt gaze truly awakens my hidden talent for love deep within me. This time, I truly believe, deep in my heart, that it's a truly blessed destiny. Meeting again, remember the sincerity. Meeting again, remember the sincerity. Meeting again, once more relying on this genuine sincerity.